Today we're delving into the concept of spiritual emergency, HPPD, and Kundalini Awakening. This is an important area of interest to me personally because when I had my own spiritual emergence, I did think that it was pretty abnormal. I had no idea that these were well-researched phenomena. So it's one of the reasons why I'm here and I'm sharing personally about what I've experienced, but also professionally over the years, what I have come to see as normal versus abnormal. All right? Spiritual emergency is a term coined by Christina and Stanislav Grof that's really used to describe intense spiritual events or crises that can occur spontaneously after traumatic or stressful events and during or after psychedelic experiences, including the practice of holotropic breathwork and Kundalini yoga. Today we'll also cover HPPD and Kundalini Awakening and how to distinguish between these conditions and psychotic disorders. Christina Grof herself experienced what we now call a spiritual emergency. The term was conceptualized by Christina alongside her husband, Stanislav Grof, who saw spiritual emergence as a critical and transformative crisis that is often mistaken for a psychotic breakdown. In his own words, Stan said, "The term spiritual emergency, which Christina and I coined for these states, alludes to their positive potential. It's a play on words. Emergency suggests a crisis, and emergence indicates that this is an opportunity for the spiritual self to emerge, to rise to a higher level of psychological functioning and spiritual awareness." In their view, such experiences, while intense and potentially overwhelming, are fundamentally episodes of profound personal upheaval and spiritual awakening. Understanding the nature of spiritual emergencies, their manifestations, and how to navigate them is crucial for anyone on a path of deep psychological or spiritual exploration, including people who are involved in psychedelic therapy, meditation, and yoga or breathwork. So episodes of this nature can be found in the life stories of shamans, yogis, mystics, and even saints. Mystical literature of the world describes these crises as important signposts of the spiritual path and confirms their healing and transformative potential. Mainstream psychiatrists are unable to see a difference between the psycho-spiritual crises or uncomplicated mystical states and serious mental illnesses because of their narrow conceptual framework. In fact, the dark night described in the poem by San Juan de la Cruz, aka Saint John of the Cross, could definitely be seen as a spiritual emergence. After analyzing San Juan's poem, which is called Noche Oscura, or translated as Dark Night, I realized that it is not a dark night of the soul, as popular sayings hold. San Juan never hinted at it being dark for his soul. It was the emergence of his soul. One could say, and I do, it is the dawn of the soul. You can learn more about the poem and my analysis of it on my blog at wondrea.com. I even wrote a poem about the ego relinquishing its control and embracing the soul's direction. So check it out on YouTube and on my website. A spiritual emergency can be seen as a turbulent period of psychological unrest that has both spiritual and therapeutic potential. It's a state where an individual experiences an intense surge of spiritual and psychological transformation, but it's often accompanied by emotional distress and confusion. So here are some of the characteristics of spiritual emergency. Spiritual emergencies can manifest in various forms, often mimicking symptoms of psychiatric disorders. Characteristics can include altered states of consciousness, visions, emotional intensity, and existential questioning. Unlike typical psychiatric episodes, they often lead to a positive transformation. Some of the triggers of spiritual emergency include physical factors such as a disease, accident, or operation, Extreme physical exertion or a prolonged lack of sleep or fasting can also be the most immediate trigger. In women, it can be childbirth, miscarriage, or abortion. The Groffs also saw situations where the onset of spiritual emergence coincided with an exceptionally powerful sexual experience. After a traumatic emotional experience, which could be loss of an important relationship, such as the death of a child or another close relative, divorce, the end of a love affair. Similarly, a series of failures or a loss of a job or property can immediately precede the onset of spiritual emergency. In predisposed individuals, the last straw can be an experience with a psychedelic substance or sessions of holotropic breathwork, or even experiential psychotherapy and shamanic ceremony. Deep involvement in various forms of meditation and spiritual practice can also trigger a spiritual emergence or emergency, and this really should not come as a surprise, since these methods have been specifically designed to facilitate spiritual experiences. You often see this after people who undergo spontaneous spiritual emergence after doing holotropic breath work, or they were practicing Zen or Vipassana meditation on retreat, Kundalini yoga, the Sufi exercises, monastic contemplation, or Christian prayer. Some people experience it just by the deep awe and sense of wonder at being in nature. So let's get into the 11 distinct types of spiritual emergencies that the Groffs identified, starting with shamanic initiation or a shamanic crisis. This type of spiritual emergency often manifests as a sudden and intense encounter with spiritual or mystical realms. Individuals may experience visions, hear voices, or feel as though they are receiving a spiritual calling or undergoing a profound transformation. The elements of physical and emotional torture, death, and rebirth are often seen in shamanic initiations. These states often involve experiences of connection with animals, plants, and the elemental forces of nature. Channeling or communication with spirit guides. Encounters with a being or light who shares messages received in the form of direct thought transfer or through other extrasensory means. In some instances, communication can take the form of verbal messages. Channeling these messages may occur through speaking in a trance, using automatic writing, or recording telepathically received thoughts. Experiences of channeling can precipitate a serious psychological and spiritual crisis. One possibility is that the individual involved can interpret the experience as an indication of insanity. This is particularly likely if the channeling involves hearing voices, a well-known symptom of paranoid schizophrenia. In my own case, when I heard voices as a child, I thought everyone did. When I shared it with other people, I found out that the other kids thought I was weird. So I quickly hid that, and I eventually even turned off some of the psychic abilities because I also believed I was a weirdo. When voices started to re-emerge in my life in my late 20s while I was in medical school, again, I didn't tell anyone about it, but I started to trust them and believe them. It was in my early 30s when I finally shared with a psychiatrist what I had seen and heard in visions without any psychedelic substances. I found out that there are some psychiatrists out there who get it, but it definitely is one of those things that can make you feel like you're a total weirdo. When it comes to spirit guides, they're usually perceived as advanced spiritual beings on a high level of consciousness and evolution. People think that these spirit guides are endowed with superior intelligence and extraordinary moral integrity. And this can sometimes lead to highly problematic ego inflation in the person channeling, who might feel that they're a chosen person for a special mission, and they see it as proof of them being superior to others. In terms of psychic openings, this encompasses experiences of suddenly gaining psychic abilities or heightened intuition. In some instances, the influx of information from non-ordinary sources, such as premonitions, precognition, telepathy, or clairvoyance, or other extrasensory perceptions, even clairsentience, as some people have said, I have. So while these abilities can seem enlightening, they can also be frightening and disorienting, particularly if the individual feels they have no control over these experiences. Out-of-body experiences are also included here, in the middle of everyday life, and often without any noticeable trigger. One's consciousness can seem to detach from the body and witness what is happening in the surroundings of the body or in various remote locations. People in spiritual crisis often experience uncanny coincidences that link the world of their inner reality, such as dreams and visionary states, to happenings in their everyday life. And this phenomenon was recognized and described by Carl Jung, who gave it the term synchronicity. Next up is UFO encounters and alien abductions. Individuals believe that they have had an encounter with an unidentified flying object, UFO, or extraterrestrial beings. And these experiences often come with a profound sense of altered reality and may include vivid dreams, visions, or even physical sensations of being transported to another place or dimension. Near-death experiences are another type of spiritual emergence that the Groffs described. This involves experiences that occur during a state of clinical death or in life-threatening situations. Individuals who have NDEs often report out-of-body experiences, traveling through a tunnel towards a light, encountering deceased loved ones or guides, or having a split-second life review. These experiences can lead to significant changes in personality and one's outlook in life, and it often leads to a complete reassessment of one's personal beliefs and priorities. This is, in fact, what happened to me in 2005. I will leave it to you to watch the video where I describe my out-of-body experience that really completely shifted my entire life perspective. Next up is Kundalini Awakening. This type of spiritual emergence or emergency involves the sudden awakening of Kundalini energy. Kundalini is traditionally described in Eastern spiritual practices as a dormant energy coiled at the base of the spine. When this energy is awakened, it can surge upwards through the chakras, leading to intense physical sensations, emotional upheavals, visions, and profound alterations in consciousness. It can be deeply transformative, but it can also be an overwhelming and disorienting experience if you don't have proper guidance and understanding. I mentioned that I had a Kundalini awakening after receiving acupuncture in 1997, which was my first Kundalini experience. I had no idea what it was, but I'm grateful for it because it inspired me to study acupuncture and discover what all of this energy stuff was all about. Past life experiences refers to experiences where individuals feel as if they have lived previous lives. These can surface spontaneously or through practices like meditation or hypnosis. People may have vivid, detailed memories of living in different times and places. It's a sense of remembering and reliving something that they've either already seen, such as déjà vu, or already experienced, déjà vécu, at some time in the past. When the content of a karmic past life experience emerges into consciousness, it can suddenly provide an explanation for many otherwise incomprehensible aspects of one's daily life. Strange difficulties in relationships, unsubstantiated fears, or peculiar idiosyncrasies and attractions, as well as otherwise incomprehensible emotional and psychosomatic symptoms. After you have sort of a past life experience, it may be that you can make sense of these karmic carryovers from a previous lifetime. Peak experiences are usually benign and transient experiences of having a sense of being simultaneously everything and nothing. The personal identity and ego may disappear. One feels that they have expanded to such an extent that their own being encompasses the entire universe. These experiences often involve feelings of unity, connectedness, and a sense of the sacred. They are generally uplifting and empowering, involving a sense of ineffability and a perception of reality that is more intense and more meaningful than ordinary experiences. There's absolutely no reason why they should have any adverse consequences. But due to the ignorance of our culture and misconceptions of the psychiatric profession concerning spiritual matters, many people who have a peak experience state end up hospitalized, tranquilized, or receive pathological labels. One caveat is in sports and musicianship and outdoor activity. Some people describe having this experience of unity, oneness, dissolving into a team if they're playing a team sport, or being in the zone or in the pocket as a musician, or people just feeling like they are one with the universe when they're out in nature. So those kinds of peak experiences are generally seen as pretty benign. The next one is interesting, the sense of being at the center of a cosmic battle. This type of spiritual emergency involves intense and often overwhelming experiences where the individual feels caught in a grand cosmic struggle between forces of good and evil. It can involve themes of martyrdom, sacred marriage, and a profound sense of mission or destiny. Because of its depth and intensity, this is the type of psychospiritual crisis that is most likely diagnosed as a serious mental disease. One may experience their psyche as a colossal battlefield where a cosmic combat is being played out between the forces of good and evil, or light and darkness. They are preoccupied with the theme of death, ritual killing, sacrifice, martyrdom, and afterlife. The problem of opposites fascinates them, particularly issues related to the differences between the sexes. They experience themselves as the center of fantastic events that have cosmic relevance and are important for the future of the world. Their visionary states tend to take them farther and farther back through their own history and the history of humanity, all the way to the creation of the world and the original ideal state of paradise. In this process, they seem to strive for perfection, trying to correct things that went wrong in the past. After a period of turmoil and confusion, the experiences become more and more pleasant and start moving toward a resolution. The process often culminates in the experience of hieros gamos, or sacred marriage, in which the individual is elevated to an illustrious or even divine status and experiences union with an equally distinguished partner. This indicates that the masculine and the feminine aspects of the personality are reaching a new balance. This sacred union can be experienced either with an imaginal archetypal figure, or it could be projected onto an idealized person from one's life who then appears to be a karmic partner or soulmate. This kind of cosmic union is what happened in my ayahuasca journey back in 2021. Sitting with the medicine, I asked the Great Mother, what blocks me in love? I got a particular answer. And when I acknowledged that those blocks were legit, I asked the Great Mother to show me what was beyond that. In the psychedelic vision, I saw the silhouette of a being, and I recognized that this was my partner, and I could feel this energy of love and joy and attraction and just bliss. Now, I was single at the time. I didn't yet know this individual, but in that psychedelic journey, I came to believe that this person must exist because I've now connected with their soul. And sure enough, a month later, on a dating app, I encountered my now husband. And when we had a video chat, I just knew there was something different about him, but we're talking, we're getting to know each other through all the little basic stuff until it hit me. I had the same feeling as when I was in that ayahuasca journey. And I just knew. I sat there and I was like, oh my God, it's you. It's the soul that I connected with a month earlier. When I was in Costa Rica, he was in the Alps in France. Didn't know me. Wasn't even on the app at the time. So anyway, that was another spiritual emergence experience of mine. Next up is addiction as a spiritual emergency. This perspective views addiction not just as a physical or psychological issue, but as a crisis of the spirit. The Groffs really felt that the root of addiction may lie in deep-seated spiritual voids or an unaddressed existential pain, leading to substance use as an attempt to fill the void or numb the pain. And recovery in that context really involves addressing the spiritual aspect and finding meaning and connection beyond substance use. If you check out my video on Bill W., the co-founder of Alcoholics Anonymous, and his white light spiritual experience, you'll see the parallels with Bill W.'s experience and what Carl Jung believed about the cure for addiction. Very, very much aligned. The final of the 11 types of spiritual emergence, according to the Groffs, is possession states. People in this type of transpersonal crisis have a distinct feeling that their psyche and body have been invaded and that they're being controlled by an evil entity or energy with very personal characteristics. They perceive it as coming from outside their own personality, and it's a hostile and disturbing entity. It can appear to be a confused, discarnate entity, a demonic being, or the consciousness of a wicked person invading them by means of black magic and hexing procedures. So, how do you distinguish these from psychiatric disorders? In the complex world of mental health and spiritual experiences, distinguishing a spiritual emergency from a psychiatric disorder is not just important, it is essential for appropriate support and treatment. One of the key differences lies in the individual's insight into their experience. In a spiritual emergency, despite the turmoil and confusion, there's often an underlying sense of purpose or growth. The person might have a feeling that what they're experiencing, as chaotic as it may be, it's leading to a significant transformation or awakening. Psychiatric disorders, on the other hand, generally involve a loss of insight and a disruption in one's ability to function in daily life. Conditions like schizophrenia or severe mood disorders can present with hallucinations or delusions, but these symptoms typically don't have the same growth-oriented context or potential for positive transformation. In psychiatric disorders, these symptoms are more likely to be disruptive, causing distress without a clear path to resolution. Another key factor in distinguishing between the two is the trajectory of the experience. Spiritual emergencies often have a turning point or a resolution, leading to personal development or a deeper understanding of oneself. They can be intense and challenging, but are frequently followed by periods of integration, where insights are assimilated and growth occurs. In contrast, psychiatric disorders often require ongoing management and may not have a clear resolution. The symptoms may persist over time and can significantly impair an individual's ability to function. It's also important to note that a spiritual emergency can coexist with psychiatric disorders. In such cases, a holistic approach that addresses both the spiritual and psychological aspects is crucial. Understanding the nuances between these experiences is key to providing effective care and support, whether that involves therapeutic intervention, spiritual guidance, or a combination of both. So, in summary, while both spiritual emergencies and psychiatric disorders can present with similar symptoms, their context, potential for growth, and overall trajectory can be markedly different. Recognizing these differences is fundamental to supporting individuals through these profound experiences. So let's talk about navigating a spiritual emergency. Dealing with a spiritual emergency requires understanding, compassionate support, and sometimes professional guidance. Recognizing a spiritual emergency as a critical and potentially transformative part of one's spiritual journey is the first step towards successfully working through it. These experiences, though intense and sometimes overwhelming, carry the potential for profound personal growth and spiritual awakening. One crucial aspect of navigating a spiritual emergency is to avoid hasty pathologization or misdiagnosis. In some cases, the experiences associated with a spiritual emergency can be mistaken for psychiatric disorders, leading to unnecessary or even harmful interventions. The use of tranquilizers or psychiatric hospitalization, although well-intentioned, can sometimes exacerbate the situation and can lead to suppressing the process that needs to unfold for true healing and integration. If you or someone you know is experiencing a spiritual emergency, it's really essential to seek support in the form of professionals who are well-versed in these matters. I am available. You can reach out, check me out at onedrea.com, but other people could include therapists, counselors who are experienced in transpersonal psychology, spiritual guidance counselors, and other practitioners who are specifically trained in handling spiritual emergencies and Kundalini awakenings. I mentioned that in our course, The Ultimate Guide to Safe Psychedelic Preparation, Dr. Arne Heisel will be joining us for a special discussion on his Kundalini awakening and the legacy training he received from Bonnie Greenwell before she transitioned. She is the one that I will be covering shortly, who famously worked with thousands of people who experienced Kundalini awakenings. It's important to note that, the professionals that you seek out really need to provide understanding and support. This is really the most important thing. And that's what can help you start to differentiate between a spiritual emergency and a mental health crisis. In the journey of psychedelic exploration, encountering challenging or bad trips is a possibility. It's important to know that there are community support platforms available that specialize in providing assistance during such experiences. Two notable organizations in this field are the Fireside Project and Zendo Project, both of which offer invaluable resources for those undergoing difficult psychedelic experiences. So first up, the Fireside Project. They operate a psychedelic peer support line, offering free, confidential support to individuals undergoing challenging psychedelic experiences. Their team consists of trained volunteers who provide empathetic, non-judgmental support, helping callers navigate their experiences, process emotions, and find grounding. They are accessible via phone or text at +1 623 473 7433. That is +1 62 Fireside. They provide a reassuring presence for those in need of immediate emotional support. The Fireside Project is an excellent resource, not just for those experiencing a bad trip, but also for individuals seeking integration support post-experience. Next up is the Zendo Project, spearheaded by the Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies, or MAPS. They provide harm reduction services at festivals and events where psychedelics are commonly used. Their approach is centered on 4 principles: creating a safe space, sitting, not guiding, talking through, not down, and difficult is not the same as bad. Zendo's trained volunteers offer compassionate care and support, helping individuals transform challenging psychedelic experiences into opportunities for learning and growth. While primarily at events, the principles and approach of the Zendo Project offer valuable insights for anyone seeking to understand and navigate difficult psychedelic experiences. So, both the Fireside Project and the Zendo Project exemplify the importance of community and support in the realm of psychedelic use. They recognize that challenging experiences can be integral to the psychedelic journey, offering opportunities for profound insight and personal growth. By providing a supportive and understanding environment, these projects play a crucial role in safer psychedelic exploration and integration. Environmental support. It's important to create a safe and supportive environment for the individual experiencing the spiritual emergency. This involves being patient, listening without judgment, and providing a stable and grounding presence. Sometimes, simply having someone who acknowledges the validity and importance of what you're going through can make a significant difference. Finally, self-care practices such as meditation, mindful breathing, grounding exercises, and spending time in nature can be so beneficial. These practices can help maintain a connection to the present moment and provide relief during periods of intense emotional or spiritual upheaval. In summary, navigating a spiritual emergency involves a delicate balance of recognizing its potential for growth, seeking appropriate professional guidance, and providing compassionate support. With the right approach, a spiritual emergency can lead to profound personal transformation and a deeper understanding of one's spiritual path. It's important to note that if meditation or Kundalini yoga were the triggers, they might not be useful in the support phase. Next up, Bonnie Greenwell's approach to spiritual emergence. Bonnie Greenwell, PhD, was a transpersonal psychologist and teacher in the field of spiritual emergence. She extensively explored the phenomenon of Kundalini awakenings, recognizing them as a specific form of spiritual emergency. Her approach to Kundalini awakenings combines deep understanding, therapeutic techniques, and a grounded perspective on these powerful experiences. Here are some key aspects of Greenwell's approach to Kundalini awakenings. First off, understanding Kundalini. Greenwell explained that Kundalini is a profound energy, and its awakening can lead to dramatic physical, emotional, and perceptual changes. It's often described in the context of spiritual practices, but it can also occur spontaneously outside of these settings. So I mentioned that Kundalini is described as a life force energy that's coiled at the base of the spinal cord. A Kundalini awakening is an experience that can lead to dramatic physical, emotional, and perceptual changes. Symptoms and manifestations. The range of symptoms associated with Kundalini awakenings can include intense energy surges, altered states of consciousness, emotional upheavals, and even physical phenomena like shaking or involuntary movements. As I mentioned, you can check out the video of me sharing about my Kundalini awakening. It was definitely a surge of energy up through my chakras, a huge emotional release, and I was definitely feeling like I was in an altered state without any medication, drugs, or psychedelic substances. One of Greenwell's key messages is that Kundalini awakening is a natural process. It's seen as part of an evolutionary drive towards greater self-awareness and spiritual growth, rather than as a pathological condition to be feared, very much in line with the Groffs. Integration and grounding. Greenwell emphasizes the importance of integrating these experiences into one's everyday life. This includes grounding techniques, lifestyle adjustments, and sometimes modifying or halting spiritual practices that may intensify the process excessively. Support and guidance. Recognizing the intense nature of Kundalini awakenings, Greenwell stressed the importance of seeking support. This can come from knowledgeable therapists, spiritual guides who are familiar with the Kundalini process, and even support groups. In her therapeutic work, Bonnie combined traditional psychological methods with an understanding of spiritual practices and experiences. And that holistic approach really can help people navigate Kundalini awakenings with a balance of spiritual insight and psychological grounding. Greenwell was dedicated to educating both individuals experiencing Kundalini awakenings and professionals who may encounter such cases in their practice. Her work lives on to demystify the experience and offers practical advice for managing. Her book, The Kundalini Guide, is a must-read for those interested in this topic. If you are a mental health professional or healthcare practitioner, you can join me for a special psilocybin truffle retreat in the Netherlands in 2024, where we will specifically explore spiritual emergence so that you're aware of what that is like after you've experienced a psychedelic journey of your own. You can find out more about these very well-curated experiences at wondrea.com. So next up is HPPD, Hallucinogen Persisting Perception Disorder. It's a relatively rare but significant condition that can occur after the use of psychedelic substances. Unlike the transformative experiences that are often associated with spiritual emergencies, HPPD is characterized by persistent sensory disturbances that continue long after the psychedelic experience has ended. The key symptoms of HPPD include visual disturbances such as seeing halos or trails attached to moving objects, experiencing geometric patterns on blank surfaces, or intense visual static. Flashbacks or spontaneous, vivid recollections of aspects of the psychedelic experience are also common in HPPD. These symptoms can be distressing and intrusive, impacting daily functioning and quality of life. It's important to understand that HPPD is not about reliving the transformative or insightful parts of the psychedelic experience. Rather, it's about dealing with ongoing, often unwelcome, visual anomalies. These symptoms can cause significant anxiety and may resemble those seen in neurological conditions like migraine auras or temporal lobe epilepsy, but they are distinct in their association with psychedelic use. The cause of HPPD isn't fully understood, but it's thought to result from changes in how the brain processes visual information. Treatment for HPPD can include medications to help manage symptoms, as well as psychotherapy to address the anxiety and disruption caused by these persistent perceptual changes. Integration is different. In spiritual emergencies, the experiences, even when difficult, can be integrated into the individual's life in a way that fosters personal growth and a sense of well-being. HPPD, on the other hand, often requires clinical intervention to manage the ongoing disruptive symptoms. Recognizing these distinctions is essential for both individuals who have used psychedelics and the professionals supporting them. Understanding whether an experience is indicative of HPPD or spiritual emergency can guide appropriate response and care, ensuring that each individual receives the support they need for their unique situation. Navigating complex experiences requires support and guidance. You already know that, for both HPPD and spiritual emergencies. But it really is worth highlighting the role of informed therapists and the importance of community support. So, we've covered a lot today. I hope that this has been informative. If you have questions, you can also join us in Sacred Psychedelic Saturday. This is a totally free education, harm reduction, community meetup on Zoom. We meet on the first Saturday of every month. Again, it's totally free. You can share, you can learn. It's a great way to share what you're going through and also prepare if you are heading out to experience a psychedelic. All right? So I hope this has been helpful for you. If you are looking to prepare for your own psychedelic journey, definitely check out the Ultimate Guide to Safe Psychedelic Preparation. I go live in the community to answer questions privately. There's a whole community of emerging psychonauts from around the world, so you don't have to be in this journey all by yourself. So thank you for tuning in to this special edition of the Conscious Evolution podcast. I hope you enjoyed it.